Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Dad's Gone Crypto. Sean's neck deep in his real world business this week, so I'm on my own today. I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, and I remembered a conversation I had with a friend last week. We were just enjoying a beer, shooting the breeze. Somehow we got on the topic of just how insanely expensive everything has become. We talked about the cost of big things like houses and cars and everyday things like groceries and just going out for a burger and a beer, and how pretty much everything is so much more expensive than it was just a decade ago. Now, my friend, he still lives fully in the real world. He works a regular job, gets paid in regular US dollars, and still hasn't made what he considers to be the leap into Bitcoin. But during our conversation, he's telling me how tough it was to save money now. He's worked in the same industry for over 30 years, getting regular promotions and pay raises, doing really well in his profession, but somehow the amount he's been able to tuck away into his savings has gotten smaller and smaller every year, even though his income has continually gone up. Well, I gave him my old regular pitch about Bitcoin that I think I've given him 100 times about how saving in Bitcoin rather than fiat could substantially help the situation. And I think this time I might have gotten through to him just a little bit, but we eventually moved on to what was happening in the baseball game on TV and how good the beer was. And just like that, we forgot all about money woes. But that conversation really got me thinking about what the hell has happened to our money. Why is everything so damn expensive now? Why can't people afford today what they could just a few years ago? And most importantly, can Bitcoin fix it? So today, we're going to take a deep dive into something I think can revolutionize how we think about wealth, value, and the future of money. This episode is about why Bitcoin may be the perfect form of money. That's a bold claim, I know. But today, I'm going to take you on a walk through history, economics, monetary theory, and cold, hard data to show you why Bitcoin isn't just a tech investment. It's a paradigm shift. We're going to look at what money really is and how it's changed over time. What happened when the US dollar was cut loose from gold in 1971? How Bitcoin compares to fiat money and even traditional investments like the S&P 500, and why, for the first time ever, we have digital money that actually might be honest. So let's start with a fundamental question that almost no one ever thinks about, and that's, what is money? Now, most people think of money as cash, credit cards, or maybe even stocks, but those are forms of money, not the definition. Economists define money by three characteristics. Is it a store of value? Does it hold purchasing power over time? Is it a medium of exchange? Can it be widely used to buy goods and services? And is it a unit of account? Can prices be easily measured in it? Now, throughout history, we've used all kinds of things as money. They used shells in Africa and Asia. They used salt bricks in ancient Rome. And then we moved on to gold and silver coins used for thousands of years. Then we moved on to paper money that was originally backed by those precious metals. Good money is durable. It doesn't rot or degrade. It's portable, easy to carry. It's divisible and can be broken down into much smaller units. It's fungible, which means one unit is identical to another. And it's scarce. It can't be created at will. Fiat money, the dollar, the euro, the yen, is none of those things in the long term, and it's especially not scarce. And that brings me to the next section, which I like to call the death of sound money. Now let's talk about a moment that changed everything. August 15th, 1971. President Nixon announced that the US would no longer allow foreign governments to redeem dollars in gold. That killed the Bretton Woods system, effectively ending the gold standard. Before that, every US dollar was backed by gold at $35 per ounce fixed. That limited how much money could be printed. After 1971, game over. The government could print without restraint. And oh, have they printed. So, here's what's happened since. In 1971, the US national debt was $398 billion. In 2025, it's over $34 trillion. The US dollar has lost over 85 to 90% of its value since the 1970s. Inflation has averaged 3 to 4% annually, meaning every dollar you've got sitting there in your checking account or your savings account is losing 3 to 4% every single year of its value. The consumer price index, so the cost of real goods, has risen over 700% since 1971, and wages have not kept pace with these increases. As an example, in 1971, a new home averaged around $25,000. Today, that's over $400,000. College tuition in 1971, around $1,200 a year. Today, $30,000 to $50,000 a year. And I can attest to that. We just put 2 kids through college over here. So we know a little bit about tuition payments. Now, your money is being silently taxed through inflation, and most people don't even realize it. Now, enter Bitcoin, and that's a new kind of money. In 2008, right in the middle of a major global financial meltdown, someone or some group named Satoshi Nakamoto released the Bitcoin white paper titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Interesting. In that paper, Satoshi introduced an idea: money that doesn't need a bank, money that lives on the internet, money that's limited, public, and controlled by no one. Some unique features of Bitcoin is that it has a fixed supply. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. No central banker can just print more. And nearly 95% of all Bitcoin has already been mined. So there's very little left to grow the supply, unlike US dollars or pretty much any central government dollars that just get printed at will. Bitcoin is decentralized. It operates on thousands of nodes across the world and has no central point of failure. And again, no central bank controlling it. It's secure. It uses cryptographic proof instead of trust, unlike fiat that requires you trust in a government that can just print money at will anytime it wants. It's transparent. All transactions are on the blockchain for anyone to verify. It's digital and borderless. You can send value across the world in minutes. Think of it as digital gold, but more portable and programmable. Now, if you take those things into consideration, comparing that to fiat money, it's starting to sound like that perfect money, isn't it? Looking at Bitcoin's first real world transaction, everybody knows, I'm sure anybody in Bitcoin knows that 10,000 Bitcoin were exchanged for 2 pizzas in 2010. Now today, those 10,000 coins would be worth over $1 billion. I said that, $1 billion, not a million, $1 billion for 2 pizzas. So let's compare Bitcoin's performance to the dollar, for instance. Since 2009, the US dollar has steadily lost purchasing power. Since 2009, Bitcoin has gone from under a penny to over $100,000. Now that's more than a 10 million % return from its earliest price. Let's think about those pizzas again for a minute. The value of those 2 pizzas today would be worth over $1 billion if you held the Bitcoin. But the value of the dollars used to purchase those same 2 pizzas then would only get you about a half of a pizza with today's prices. The real world value of our fiat money is continuing to shrink year after year as the real world value of Bitcoin continues to rise. In the USA, the average price of a house 10 years ago was around $280,000. Today, it's over $500,000. So in housing value, your money has lost over 40% in the last 10 years. Now, 10 years ago, the average price of a house was around 1,100 Bitcoin. Today, it's less than 5 Bitcoin. So your housing value in Bitcoin has gained over 20,000%. In US dollar, you've lost over 40% in housing value. And in Bitcoin, you've gained over 20,000% in housing value. Bitcoin is deflationary by design. Every 4 years, its supply issuance cuts in half, called the halving. I'm sure you've all heard this and we've all talked about it. But the halving is what builds in scarcity that leads to long-term price appreciation, unlike fiat that can constantly be printed and devalues pretty much everything that you own. Now, that built-in scarcity leads to long-term price appreciation, unlike fiat that constantly loses value compared to everything else. And unlike the dollar, you don't need a bank account. If you have a phone and a wallet app, you're all set to go. So we talked about Bitcoin versus the dollar, but what about the major stock indexes? You say, oh, well, hey, if I invested in the S&P 500, I'm doing better, right? Well, let's take a look at that. And I'm going to try to make it a little more fair to traditional markets and take out the first 6 years of Bitcoin and just look at the annualized returns over the last decade from 2015 to 2025. Because if we look at those first 6 years, it's just absolutely insane because the value went absolutely crazy from 2009 to 2015. So we're going to start in 2015 and go back a decade. The S&P 500 is roughly earned about 11% a year. The NASDAQ, 13, 14% a year. Bitcoin has earned over 84% compound annual growth rate, depending on when you bought. So let's say you invested $1,000 in the S&P 500 in 2015. That $1,000 would be worth about $3,200 today. You say, great, right? You tripled your money in 10 years. That $1,000 in Bitcoin would be worth $640,000 today. A 3x compared to a 640x. I'd say Bitcoin's winning that argument. Of course, Bitcoin is definitely more volatile. I mean, you've all heard stories of it dropping 50% in a week, and that's true. But over time, Bitcoin has always recovered and it's always gone on to make new highs. Bitcoin is always on that up and right trajectory over the long term. And unlike stocks, Bitcoin is not tied to corporate earnings, CEO scandals, or government bailouts. It's driven by code, math, and global demand. So why do I think Bitcoin is the perfect money? Well, let's revisit the 3 purposes of money and grade Bitcoin against it. So number 1, a store of value. Is it? Well, yeah. Long-term holders, or hodlers as we call them in Bitcoin, have been significantly rewarded. It's like digital gold, but more divisible and portable. Medium of exchange. It's growing fast. With the Lightning Network, Bitcoin payments can be almost instant and nearly free. Countries like El Salvador, and soon many more, are now accepting Bitcoin at gas stations, grocery stores, just about everywhere. A unit of account, it's getting there. Some people, like early users, we all do kind of think of things in terms of Bitcoin. Now, most goods are still priced in fiat, but in some countries experiencing hyperinflation, Bitcoin is starting to become the preferred unit of value. And Bitcoin has some bonus qualities that you'll never find in fiat currencies. It's censorship resistant. No one can freeze your account or reverse your transactions. Your bank doesn't like that you tweeted something out, that they don't agree with. I guess they could just freeze your accounts, right? And tell you to piss off and go open an account somewhere else. Bitcoin will never do something like that to you. Bitcoin's open source. Anyone can audit the code or run a node on your own. And most importantly, Bitcoin is unconfiscatable. If you hold your own keys, no one can take your Bitcoin. The government can't decide that you did something wrong and steal your Bitcoin from you. Bitcoin is money for the internet age. It's free from government control, free from inflation, and free from middlemen. Now, I've talked up Bitcoin a lot. I know, I love Bitcoin. But let's address some of the common criticisms here. People will say, well, Bitcoin's used for crime. Whatever. Sure. Bitcoin has been used in crimes, I'm sure, but not anywhere near the extent that cash is used in crimes. In fact, going back to a 2021 chain analysis, it found that less than 0.15% of Bitcoin transactions were illicit. Now compare that to fiat, and I guarantee you're going to see a hell of a lot more. Some people are going to say it's too volatile. Well, yeah, but early tech is always volatile. Look at Amazon stock. It dropped over 90% in its early years, and now it's $1 trillion company. Bitcoin's volatility is the price of admission for life-changing returns. Some will say it uses too much energy, but let's be honest. Bitcoin, sure, it uses energy, but it's still less energy than Christmas lights in the US, for instance. it's less energy than mining gold. It's less energy than the banking system. It's kind of a non-argument. And to that point, if you are concerned about the energy, Bitcoin miners are starting to use stranded or wasted energy like flared gas or surplus hydro. El Salvador is mining Bitcoin with thermal energy from volcanoes. So there's all kinds of creative ways to get around any type of energy crisis around Bitcoin. So with all that in mind, is Bitcoin the perfect form of money? Well, maybe not yet, but it's the best attempt we've ever seen at fair, sound, global money. In a world where governments print trillions out of thin air, banks go bankrupt overnight, inflation quietly robs you of your labor, Bitcoin stands tall as incorruptible money. It's not just a speculation tool. It's a lifeboat, a freedom technology, and a new standard. If you're curious, don't just speculate, educate yourself. Read the white paper, set up a wallet, move $10 just to try it out. Learn about private keys and custody. Understand how money works and how your governments have been fleecing you of your time, energy, labor, and your lives. Because once you go down that rabbit hole, there's no going back. Thanks for spending your time with me today, guys. If this episode helped you rethink money or sparked your curiosity a little bit, please share it with your friends, subscribe, and leave us a review in the comments. And remember, in a world where everything is inflated, scarcity is power. Until next time, stay curious and stay sovereign. See you guys. The material and information presented in this recording are for entertainment purposes only. Do not misconstrue what you hear as investment or trading advice. Always do your own research. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by the guests on this recording are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Dad's Gone Crypto or its hosts.